All right, I'm super excited about this because this is going to be an education for me in crypto, blockchain, Bitcoin, you name it. Meltem Demirors is here with us, Chief Strategy Officer at CoinShares. Thank you.
Hello. How are you, Tracy?
The first thing I said when we walked in, I can't believe how young you are. And you said that really the whole industry is young, isn't it?
Sure. I think there's definitely a large part of the blockchain industry that's fairly young. I think working in cryptocurrencies, working in blockchain requires you to some degree to extend your imagination to what the world of finance could look like.
So, all right, so first, what is CoinShares?
CoinShares is the world's leading digital asset manager. So we focus on helping institutional investors get exposure to crypto assets. And we're also helping crypto asset companies that are building new cryptocurrencies, that are investing in cryptocurrencies, manage their assets in an institutional way.
I think for so many people, it's still very confusing because it's very esoteric.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
It's like, as you said, beyond what we all learned in grad school. I have my MBA, like, didn't learn any of this.
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't can't get their heads around, myself included, the fact that you don't touch anything. There's no actual coin, Bitcoin. It's almost a misnomer.
It is. And I think, look, one of the challenges is we're using traditional financial syntax, traditional finance language to describe what Bitcoin is, when in fact what we're doing is we're creating an entirely new construct of what assets could be. They're digital representations of value. If we think about all the things in our world that have historically been physical, that are becoming digitized as a result of technical innovation, money is the next thing that we're looking at. That's
or the last thing, almost, right? Because almost everything else has been digitized.
To some degree, yes.
Right?
And that really depends on where in the world you live. Here in the US, certainly. I mean, I live 90% of my life on this little guy here, my phone. But money is still really, really hard to manage through your phone.
And you and I were talking before we started, and I was starting to say, can you think of it as me using my Venmo account? But you said that's actually not accurate. Because to me, my Venmo account, you know, like if my kid had one, I send money, which is the story of my life. I just send money to my kids, right, all day long. So, but I never touch it.
Yep. So here's the thing that got me really excited about Bitcoin as a finance person and someone who comes from the developing world. My family comes from Turkey. So the idea that's really exciting about Bitcoin is it's an open, permissionless financial system that is entirely digital and entirely technology driven. So anyone in the world with an internet connection and the Bitcoin code, which is open source, anyone can download it, use it, fork it, make a derivative of it. They can participate in the Bitcoin network, which is basically the monetary system that underlies Bitcoin. And so with Venmo, the idea is you already have to have a bank account to use Venmo.
Right.
So if you don't have a bank account, if you don't have an ID, if for some reason there are some things about your identity that don't enable you to open a bank account, can't use Venmo. It requires the two people who want to transact to both be on the same network, which is the Venmo network. And then there are limitations as to how much money you can move on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, which are driven by rules and regulations. With the Bitcoin network, number one, I don't need to know who you are. You don't need an identity.
Which arguably is bad.
I feel like that is a very judgmental word.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No. But look, what I said to you
earlier,
I
just mean it seems very ripe for criminals.
Well, look, Bitcoin can be used like any other technology for good or for bad.
Fair enough.
I would say 99.9% of what people are using Bitcoin for is for good. Of course, there's going to be some nefarious activity, but one of the great things about the Bitcoin blockchain is it's traceable, it's very transparent, and law enforcement actually can easily track activity on the Bitcoin network. And so in a lot of ways, it's actually been really helpful to law enforcement trying to track and trace what's happening. But also, if you look at how people launder money and engage in illicit finance, cash, the US dollar, is still number one. Second is the good old banking system. And on that list, Bitcoin is about number 40.
Is it regulated?
Yep, it is regulated.
Becoming more regulated, I should say.
Yes, so the IRS has guidance on how it's taxed. Right. The CFTC has a market oversight committee that looks at market activity. The SEC has rules and regulations on how crypto assets can be created, issued, sold to investors. There's a whole lot of activity going on in Washington, D.C. Around cryptocurrency.
So do you think we are going to start to buy and sell goods using Bitcoin or some form of crypto?
I don't know that in this country that will necessarily happen. Again, we live in an economy with a pretty well-developed payment system. We have Visa, we have MasterCard, Apple Pay, all of these resources, PayPal, Venmo. What I do think digital currencies are really good at is preserving value. And they're a really great asset class for tech investors who want exposure to this new form of financial technology. So I think in the US, the predominant approach I've seen from an investing perspective is for people to treat Bitcoin kind of like gold, but digital gold, right, as a store of value, something that will appreciate over time. And on other cryptocurrencies, to really view it as an investment in technology. So we see a lot of early stage venture capital firms. We see a lot of tech investors, people who are familiar with investing in internet stocks, for example, being attracted to the asset class for this reason.
It's at a 4-month low, though.
It is, but it's at a,
no, I mean, look, it was
high.
to the moon. Right. No, but so, and a lot of people are screaming price manipulation, the uncertainty of it. I mean, it is still a worry. Like, mom and pop shouldn't be investing in this.
It is a highly volatile asset class, and the way we talk about it at CoinShares is it's really all about volatility management. So my research team and I spend a lot of time looking at volatility. So in global equities, so if you're buying a share of Apple, typically volatility is around 20 to 30% a year. In crypto, if you're buying Bitcoin, it's 100%. Woo. If you're buying Ether, it's closer to 150%. If you're buying a newer, earlier stage cryptocurrency, it can be as high as 250 or 300%. So if you're uncomfortable with a lot of volatility in your portfolio, it's probably not a great asset to hold. But if you're okay allocating 1 to 2% of your portfolio to high volatility, high risk, high growth assets, it could be actually a really great product for you.
It's like your lotto money.
Exactly.
We were talking.
No, it's not like lotto money.
No, I mean, it's like the money you're willing to lose.
Exactly, right? But people invest in really high risk tech stocks all the time.
Yeah,
like biotech companies.
Right.
So I put it in that category.
Right. The stuff you're willing, if you could still sleep at night, go for it, kind of thing.
Exactly.
If you could lose it and sleep at night.
All about your risk appetite.
Right.
I apparently have an extremely high one.
Heck yeah. But so now, as like chief strategist, are you going out and finding people or matching people, investors with crypto?
No, so really what I'm thinking about, our marketing team and our product sales team spends a lot of time working with institutional investors and retail investors to really help them understand why this is a great investment vehicle. What I spend a lot of my time on is thinking about what's next for this asset class. And to me, we've spent a lot of time focusing on bringing institutional money into crypto. But what I'm spending my time on now is taking all of the money that's in cryptocurrencies. So over the last 12 months, over $12 billion have been raised using a new financing vehicle called an initial coin offering. And so what I'm focusing on is that $12 billion and institutionalizing that. So starting to bring in principles of corporate finance, long-term capital management, risk hedging, et cetera.
Okay, wait. We got to back up. So institutions are putting a lot of money into this?
Okay. Institutions and investors.
So that means you're saying that institutions are taking serious risks. By institutions, are we talking like pensions?
No, not pensions yet, unfortunately.
The whole world is like, right now.
When I say, in my world, institutional is venture capital firms. I spend a lot of my time, in the VC space. So early stage venture investors, a lot of hedge funds now are allocating to the crypto space. A lot of family offices who are traditional tech investors are allocating to the space. So it's starting to evolve. And we even have 1 or 2 ETFs here in the States that have a portion of their portfolio in cryptocurrencies.
Because you had the Winklevoss twins come out and like say they were like overnight billionaires, and now all of a sudden it's okay for like family offices to put their life savings in this?
Well, it's not life savings, right? Everyone's taking a fairly risk-managed approach. So again, what we see is typically 1 to 5% of the portfolio allocated to crypto assets can have a big impact on returns over time while minimizing volatility and risk exposure. So it's really all about managing, again, volatility and your personal appetite for risk.
So I cut you off. So you started saying then that you're looking at trends.
Yes, so I'm looking at macro trends happening not only in the institutional investing space, but happening in the crypto space. So at CoinShares, we spend a lot of our time working with founders, with entrepreneurs, people who are building new cryptocurrencies, and people who are working on making existing cryptocurrencies more successful, helping them be more widely adopted. So we're really providing them with financial management tools to enable them to do what they came here to do, which is build great technology. And we worry about the long-term capital management.
So to build a new crypto,
yes,
the intent isn't to build it to go buy product with it. It's to build it to trade.
Well, so right now, a lot of the investing activity is driven off of speculation, but what people are building, so just like with the internet, where a lot of the 1980s and early 1990s were spent building protocols or the rules and the languages and the systems that would define the internet and all the applications that got built on top of it. Right now in the crypto world, we're still in the very early stages of building the actual technology itself. And so a lot of what's getting built and capitalized today is that underlying infrastructure. And then as that develops and matures, we'll start to see more and more applications built that you and I can actually interact with on our phones or on our devices. But today, as you said earlier, a lot of it's still fairly esoteric, it's very intellectually driven, and it's really all about technology development.
They should hire you to be their spokesperson, by the way, because you're amazing. You're explaining it brilliantly.
I'm trying.
Okay,
Hopefully
no, you are.
Sense.
I swear. And like, I think that it's, like you said, I think it needs its own language, because that's really what it is, right? To interchange old school financial terms with crypto is really counterintuitive and almost contradictory.
Well, and the way at CoinShares that we really view the world is there are two approaches. There's the revolution approach, which when I started in Bitcoin in 2013, a lot of it was very politically driven. It was very economically driven. So it was really all about crypto anarchism and, oh, we don't need banks or governments. And that's revolution. I think what we're seeing now is more evolution, where we're saying, look, we understand rules and regulations exist. The SEC, the CFTC, FINRA, DOJ, Treasury, they exist for a reason. But we want to help them evolve. And we know that process will take time. So let's work together. Probably 50% of what we do fits into existing ideas that we have about finance and financial systems. But that other 50%, let's work together to evolve our understanding of what markets and investment vehicles could look like to accommodate this new tool that we have, which is cryptocurrency.
In a weird way, there is a connection to your past, because you were oil and gas, right?
I was,
and that's like a weird thing to trade too.
It
and
is.
It took a long time for the world to figure out how to trade that.
Exactly, right? Even figuring out how to strike spot price every day. For cryptocurrencies, for Bitcoin, for example, one of the fun challenges in 2015 that I worked on is how do you spot price a Bitcoin?
Right.
When it's traded 24/7 and across a lot of different markets that are very illiquid and settle in different currencies, how do you spot price that? So we started to see the development of indices. Same thing with oil, right? How do you price the barrel of oil or a million cubic feet of natural gas? So these are things we've certainly seen before. And then the other analog I would say is investing in the development of oil and gas infrastructure. These were multi-billion-dollar projects that took 15 to 20 years to mature. Same thing with cryptocurrency protocols. They made Bitcoin's been around for 10 years, and we're just now at the point that we're at where it's useful and people understand it. A lot of these newer cryptocurrencies may take 5, 10, 15 years to develop.
You got to believe it's going to be expedited, though. Like, the oil infrastructure versus the Bitcoin infrastructure is night and day.
Well, it's also all digital, right?
And it's all digital, right?
Yeah, so in oil and gas, right, I was investing in pipelines and rigs and really heavy, ugly, hard to move things,
right?
Really big, clunky stuff. In crypto, it's great, it's all digital. It's lines of code that run on devices. So the great thing about it is highly portable, and it's easy to build, and it's easy to move. It's fully digital. It's amazing.
What fascinated you enough to leave? I mean, oil and gas, like, with all due respect, it's a snoozer. I get it, but it was an easy out. But what brought you to crypto?
So I think there are probably three major things. Number one is, as I mentioned, my family is from Turkey and a very rural part of Turkey. So growing up, I spent a lot of time in rural Turkey with my family, and growing up in Europe and in the US, which is very developed, and I had access to everything a person could have access to, and seeing the disparity of wealth and the disparity of opportunity between people who had the ability to save, who had the ability to manage their own money, to control their own money, who had a stable currency like the US dollar to hold, it was insane to me. The second thing is I was part of that wave of young people who was in university and finishing university during the financial crisis. So I had job offers rescinded, as a result of the financial crisis. I watched my friends struggle. I watched an entire generation of people struggle as a result of this massive crisis in the US financial system, as a result of just layers of risk.
You were in school in the US though, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I was at Rice University in 2008. And fortunately, Rice in Houston was a little more isolated. But I think we all had job offers rescinded from the world's top investment banks. I had a friend who was supposed to go work at Bear.
Oh.
And you wake up one day and Bear is no longer an entity.
Right.
I mean, you think about the impact that had on millions of people's lives, and really not much in our financial system has changed since. And I think the third part is really driven by my own personal goal, which is, look, for far too long, the world's wealth has been directed and controlled by white men.
Yes.
And in the US, women are 51% of the population. We own 60% of the wealth in this country, and we drive 80% of household spending. So it is time to create new financial products, new financial services, a new financial system that caters to the population of this country. And this is an ongoing problem. Even in my industry, we're missing out on the greatest opportunity to market to the people who actually make spending decisions in households.
I mean, it's music to my ears what you're saying, but why do you think that, because I run my own household, I'm a single mother, I've been one for 13 years. Why do you think I need Bitcoin in my life?
You may not need it from a day-to-day transacting perspective, but as an investment opportunity, as a store of value, having a little bit of exposure to Bitcoin would be great. For me personally, I've benefited from having exposure to Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies in my portfolio. And look, the internet in the early days created a massive, massive boom of wealth. And a lot of that wealth went to people who are already wealthy, who are already tech investors, as well as entrepreneurs.
Now let me ask you, because you just paved the way for my next round of questions. How do I do that?
So there are a lot of different ways to do it. And again, what I always ask people is, what's your risk appetite? What type of investor are you? Some people who really like logging into their Vanguard account and buying things through their 401k. There are a few 401k programs where you can buy Bitcoin-focused products. CoinShares has a few Bitcoin products that are offered through the NASDAQ in Stockholm. There are also ways that you can buy it yourself online. So Coinbase.com is a really great service. They have, I think, over 20 million customers. They're backed by some of the world's largest investors. I've bought Bitcoin through Coinbase.com and been very happy. So if you want to play around there, it's a really easy platform.
But I love that you're saying this and that women should seriously get out there and think about this.
Yeah, well, why not? Look, what I think's really crazy, I know nothing about biotech, right? I know absolutely nothing about it, but I do know that as an investment sector, it's very important, right? We have an aging population. Medicare and Medicaid are programs that have a lot of interesting challenges. The rise of healthcare is increasing exponentially. So to me, investing in biotech's like, oh, no-brainer. Do I know how to do that? Absolutely not. So what do? I go to my Schwab portfolio, my Vanguard portfolio, and I buy a biotech-focused index product, right?
Or an ETF.
Or an ETF of some sort. So in the crypto space, we're starting to see the same investment products develop. And that's one of the things that CoinShares were really focused on, is creating products that make it really easy for people to trust what they're investing in, but to also just start to learn about it, right? So you get your fund prospectus, you read through all of the different assets that are in there, and you start to learn.
Yeah, because that will really legitimize it and make it easier for people to get and understand and put some money behind it.
But look, that's going to take some time, because in the US, obviously, the SEC is very concerned about protecting consumers. There's still a lot of things about this technology that are being understood. Even people who work in the industry, I say all the time, for someone who spends all of their time in this industry, I probably know the least.
No, that's not true at all. I'm telling you, they should hire you. You should be spokesperson. We don't have a ton of time, but I have to ask you, let's talk about this industry, because you're mixing trading with technology. You couldn't get two more male-oriented industries, right?
Yep.
Are there a lot of women?
So there are. I would say over the last 3 years, when I first started, a lot of the women in the industry were typically, that second layer of management in an organization. Since then, a lot of women have branched out on their own, launched their own firms. We now have female-led asset management firms, which is great. Kathy Wood at ARK, which is an ETF manager, has done a great job at her firm bringing crypto into the mix. And so we're starting to see the numbers change a bit. But look, what I always go back to is in the tech sector. I think there are about 17% women in the early stage tech sector. In crypto, we're probably at around 15 to 20%. But I think this is a great opportunity to do better. And more importantly, there's so many women in the crypto ecosystem who are so incredibly motivated, who are so incredibly driven, but more importantly, they have the execution capability. They have what it takes to get it done. And so I have no doubts that if myself and the other women in the industry with me have our way, that we will see 30, 40% female industry in no time at all. That's the goal.
That's amazing. I love your enthusiasm, but I also think that because it is starting, dare I say younger?
Sure.
Right? We're not starting with the white gray-haired.
Well, look, there is a bit of that, especially on the institutional side, but I think people are more open-minded. And here's the great thing. If you're looking to start a career in a particular sector, this is one that's still at the early stages of being defined. So to me, it was like, hey, I could go work in oil and gas and be a small fish in a big pond, or I could work in crypto and become a big fish in a small but growing pond. And so the message out there is if people are looking to change careers, if they're looking to get into the industry, well, consider crypto. There's a lot of opportunity. We need a lot of different skill sets. But most importantly, if we truly are building the next iteration of our financial system, it has to be representative of all of the different people who participate in our economy. And so to me, it's very important that we have representation from people with different educational backgrounds, people with different job experiences, people with different life experiences, so that what we build is reflective of what society as a whole needs.
You could end up being the most diverse, inclusive industry out there.
That would be a dream.
Wouldn't it?
We have a lot of work to do, but I'll be in my corner banging the drum loudly.
I'll be right behind you, girl.
Sounds great. Sounds great. Let's do it.
You are awesome. I'm going to shout out to the crypto world to hire you and put you on billboards everywhere. Meltem, you're awesome.
So are you. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm so glad we finally got to do this.